everybody, and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles. This is my tag team partner, Philip LaFon.
Thanks, Doug Furnace. Gary Rhodes, everybody.
This is our TNA show for the week. We're going to go right into it. To start it off with something more boring than Gary's commentary, the Aces Mates in the ring. Bully Ray apologizing for how he treated his brother Devon. And went right into a match out of that with Nux versus Chris Sabin.
Very solid match.
I thought Nux showed very well in this match.
I always thought Mike Knox, or Nux, whatever you're going to call him, he did good when he was in WWE. He just never had the right opponent to work with, I think. His little thing with Mysterio was good, but other than that...
He had the thing with Punk and ECW, too.
Yeah.
Where they were fighting over Kelly.
Yeah.
Kelly.
Kelly.
It was good. Then we had to obviously say... They finally admit that Sabin and Velvet Sky are dating after it. Oh, well, Nux wins because Sabin gets a hammer and hits him. And then Velvet talks about, honey, don't be so mad, and Sabin's flipping out in the back. Talking about the hammer always coming into play.
Hammer always comes into play.
It'd be awesome if they brought the real hammer back, Greg Valentine.
He is figure fours. Then we had...
You're about as interesting as Hammer Valentine is now.
You're about interesting as Mickey James' interview.
Ooh.
Promo.
Shadow DB in there, though.
The old dirty bastard?
Yeah. He's back from the grave.
Yeah. Wu-Tanga!
One dirty bitch.
There's Tang involved with both.
You put both of them in your mouth, so. They had the little schmaz going on, basically setting up their match for next week. But then we come into
your high point of the night.
Yeah, the Gauntlet Battle Royal, which is basically a ripoff of the Royal Rumble. And we'll name everybody in there in order of entrance. We had Hernandez, Bradley, Joseph Park, Mr. Anderson, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Frankie Kazarian, Christopher Daniels, Jeff Hardy, Bobby Roode, Austin Aries, and finally Magnus. The winner got 20 points for the Bound for Glory series. AJ Styles picks up the win. Kind of anticlimactic that he won. Thing I want to talk about most is how clunky this seemed. It seemed all the eliminations, I mean, they didn't look like they worked out any of the spots they were going to do. I mean, the guys were just like, it was awkward going out.
Well, you know, like some of these guys are not. These are trained professionals, and they've been doing it for a while. Yeah. And it just seemed very Bush League.
Every Battle Royal, you get one or two clunky eliminations, but it seemed that every single elimination on this was just, I don't know, like the whole thing was a mess to me.
But like I said, you look at the quality of guys you got in there. You got Kaz, you got Daniels, you got AJ, Samoa Joe, Aries,
Roode, Magnus.
You know, Magnus, I mean, for a young guy, he's picking up good. Jeff Hardy. You know, Magnus, for a young guy, he's picked up.
Yeah.
You know, leaps and bounds over a lot of guys that have been in the business the length of time he's been in. You know, you expect more from him now. You know, I don't look at he's a 5-year guy. I mean, he's a great guy, a great performer. And, you know, this year was just a real letdown.
It was a train wreck, in my opinion, and it was a horrible way. They abruptly ended the Bound for Glory before its time, and I don't know, just the whole thing was rushed. It didn't seem like they had plans for anything on it. I don't know. To me, it was just bad.
Terrible.
Going off of that to something good, our question of the week from last week. Who is your favorite knockout in TNA? Now, we got an answer from one of our friends, Andre Corbeil. He said, Gail Kim, to answer your question of the week, a close second goes to Miss Hardcore Country, which would be Mickey James. What do you think, Gary?
On the active roster right now?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Victoria's gone, so you really can't pick her. I'll go with Velvet. I mean, Velvet's, you know, she's great.
All about the eye candy.
Well, I mean, really, I mean, if you look at a lot of the ones that are in there, I mean, Gail Kim is the best technician they got on that side of the company, but really, it's an eye candy. For eye candy and Velvet can wrestle. I don't think she's terrible.
I'm going to go with Gail, though. I think Velvet is just as attractive, but 10 times a better wrestler. The sad thing is the drop off from a couple of years ago when we had girls like Taylor Wilde, the heck was her name? Angelina Love, Winter, Daphne.
Just had her kid,
Madison Rain.
Madison Rain, yeah.
I mean, the drop off from the talent we used to have, and that's not even including Awesome Khan.
Yeah, have you seen her lately?
Yeah, she dropped a bunch of weight.
Yeah. I think she she still looks vicious looking now. You know, I think she should go back.
Yeah, that's if they offer her a job. Now, coming off of that, our question of the week for this week is, how do you feel about AJ Styles winning the Bound for Glory series? Kind of was a dark horse the whole time. Picked up his points mostly in the last couple weeks to lead the leader all the way through, which was Magnus. And what do you think? Let us know. Hit us up on our Twitter. Hit us up on Facebook. Put it down where?
Down there.
Down in the comments. Anyway, going back to the show, we had the tag team champions, James Storm and Gunner, versus Wes Briscoe and Garrett Bischoff. And Briscoe and Bischoff picked up the win. I actually thought they looked good. I thought they're kind of working out better as a team.
Bischoff is getting a lot better than what he was like a year ago. I mean, the kid has improved by leaps and bounds.
Do you think the thing that hurts him most is his last name? His biggest advantage is also his biggest detractor.
I'd have to say it's a double-edged sword, like you just said. You know,
I mean, it gets him in the door because anybody with his talent would not be on their roster right now. However, any improvements he does make, he doesn't get credits for because he's Eric Bischoff's son, and there's such a negative connotation with Eric Bischoff.
Well, so, I mean, you look at with Briscoe that's there with him. Briscoe, by all means, should be working with his dad in WWE, but he just doesn't have the skill set to be there, I don't think.
Oh, no, he's nowhere near the wrestler his dad or uncle was.
No. But I'm saying, if you're going by last name alone, Vince should have hired him off the spot.
Well, he did have him on the developmental roster.
Yeah, but I'm talking about main. You know.
He couldn't cut it.
I don't think he could cut. I mean, cut it is great.
He's getting better though.
Like I said, they are getting better.
Yeah. Now, speaking of some guys that are and Bischoff and Briscoe win. A little bit of chicanery involved, which is what you would expect with an Ace and Eights match. Now, the next, going from some of the lower end of TNA's roster to some of the higher end of TNA's roster, we had the four guys that were in the final four of the Battle for Glory. AJ Styles, as you guys know, gets to pick his match. We had AJ Styles, Austin Aries, Bobby Roode, and Magnus came out. AJ says, I want to take on Aries, which leaves Roode versus Magnus. Next week, we're going to have AJ versus Austin Aries, Bobby Roode versus Magnus, winner versus winner for the Battle for Glory winner that goes on to, what is it? It is Battle for Glory. They go on to Battle for Glory to face the world champion, which will probably still be Bully Ray, unless they swerve us next week. Speaking of the world champion, we had Bully Ray versus Sting in a non-title match, even though Hulk Hogan messed up last week and said it was for the title. Hogan comes out, bars Tito Ortiz from the ring, but then makes it a no DQ match, which, if you think about it, the reason that Sting can't wrestle for the title is losing a no DQ match, which there's no psychology involved. And it plays right into Bully Ray's strong points. I mean, the match was almost a carbon copy of their Genesis match. The only difference is when the Aces and Eights came to the ring, the main event Mafia was there to counteract them. I mean, he even did the thing where he cut up the ring and was going to pile drive him on the wood again. But it comes down to Bully versus Sting. Bully's in the Scorpion Deathlock. Mr. Anderson's on the outside. He's trying to give him the hammer and pulling it away, and eventually lets it go. Bully Ray taps out, losing to Sting in a non-title match. Anderson gets in the ring afterwards. Thing that we mentioned last week was Hogan said that in 2 weeks, which will be next week, one of the Aces and Eights is going to challenge Bully Ray for the world title. We found out it's Mr. Anderson, who seems to have turned face. Or maybe just trying to take over Aces and Eights.
Either way, it'd be good.
Yeah. I mean, I think if he fails, he goes face. If he wins, he takes over Aces and Eights, and Bully Ray goes on to something else.
Maybe a face turn or something, or.
Well, I mean, I think with the, who knows what the way the TNA book stuff, what they're going to do with either of the guys that lose. But you know, overall, before we go into our ratings for the week, we got our Hulk Hogan Thunderlip / Suburban Commando count for the week. 1 Thunderlips. And we're going to go right into our ratings for the show. Now, if you've seen our show before, we have a 1 to 5 scale. 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Basically, a 1's a Jesse Goddard's, a 2's a Garrett Bischoff, 3's a James Storm, 4's a Christopher Daniels, 5's a Bobby Roode. I'm going to go ahead and lead it off. I'm giving it a Garrett Bischoff a 2.
I'm so much wanting to give it a Goddard, though.
The setup for the match next week. The sad thing is, the setup for the Bound for Glory matches next week are the highlight of the show. And Nux and Saban, you got to give it a little bit something for that.
Okay, I'll give you a Bischoff on it.
I mean, Nux and Saban was better than advertised. I mean,
Yeah.
if you see that on paper, you think that's going to be a train wreck.
Yeah.
And Nux looked great in it. I mean,
all right, we'll give it a Bischoff.
I mean, to me, it seemed like Nux seemed to be auditioning for when Aces and Eights is gone and they get rid of trim some of the fat from it.
Yeah.
That he still deserves a roster spot. But you give it a Bischoff, I give it a Bischoff. Anything else you needed to add?
And that's it, my friend.
My name is George Coles.
I'm Gary Rhodes.
This has been another episode of Heel Heat.